There we go. Okay, I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the
to the flag
United
of
States
the States of America
and to
and to the republic for
one
which it
one
stands,
nation under God,
under
yeah,
God, indivisible,
liberty and
with
justice.
liberty, justice for all.
Kiwanis is a global
Is a global
organization
organization
of volunteers
dedicated to
dedicated to improving the world
for
one
a
child
child
and
and
one
one
community at
community
a time, service to
service
others.
to others. Okay, thanks. Larry was supposed to have the invocation today, but he's not available. So if you would, let's bow our heads. Lord, thank you for allowing us today to share time and camaraderie with others, including our friends and family. It's a very trying time right now with our country hitting all kinds of records with this COVID-19 pandemic. Help us to steady ourselves both spiritually and physically as our country and our world tries to control and eliminate this disease with your help. Teach us to understand that this season is a time for love among all peoples, regardless of race, religion, or creed. Whether we celebrate Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, or other types of seasonal and religious celebrations, help us to be respectful and accept others as our brothers and sisters. We pray for the families of our club members who are sick or have passed, and we ask that you give them strength through this season. Thank you for all you do. Amen.
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 Okay, no guests, I don't see. Announcements, volunteer opportunities. We still need one more person for our food truck at the Youth Service Bureau on Friday, tomorrow. We need one more person to sign up. December 14th is when we pack the backpacks, and those, we've got enough people for that. So thank you all very, very much. Jerry, you still need something, right?
Yeah, I'm still looking for program chairs for, I think, 4 months. And so I'll make my weekly plea. Please volunteer, or you might get volunteered yourself. It's not difficult to do. And with Zoom, the speaker doesn't just have to come from the Crawfordsville area. It could be anybody, anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, as far as that goes. So there's some ideas out there. Please give it a consideration. Also, I'd like to, well, I've got the floor. I ran into Hubert Danzebrink at breakfast day before yesterday. He has been fighting some skin cancer and is concerned that it has spread to other parts of his body. He said he's had a pretty rough time, so please keep Hubert in your thoughts and prayers as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Operation Toy Box, volunteer opportunities. Some great news first. The American Legion presented us with a check yesterday for $1,200. Said they would, that's for the toys of stuff that we don't get, so we can go out and buy those toys Wednesday night, Thursday, or excuse me, that'll be Sunday night or Monday morning before we give them away. They said they would also bring over any toys that they had left after their party. So they were distributing a bunch of toys there, and if they have any left, they'll bring those over. So thanks to the American Legion for all their help there. We do need about 6 people to help set up toys at the Armory for distribution on December 21st. That's a Sunday afternoon, so there should be a bunch of people available. It's at 1 p.m.
20th. Sunday's the 20th.
I'm sorry, the 20th. I'm sorry, the 20th. Yes. We will do the distribution on the 21st, and we need a minimum of 4 people per shift for that. First shift at 12:30 to 3, and the second shift 2:30 till 6. If you want to take both shifts, you can do that. We'd love that. So we do need the help, though, to get everything put out, shared and open for everybody to see, so we can everybody can come in on the 21st to pick those out. Letters to the families have gone out. Dave Long and his wife have done a fantastic job in coordinating this and getting it all out. So all of that will be out, and the people will be coming in with the letters on the 21st. Any questions on Operation Toy Box?
Yeah, what was that time on Sunday?
Sunday is at 1 p.m.
And that's at the Armory, right?
Right. Again, anybody come into the Armory, we do need to wear masks, of course, both on the 20th and the 21st. And all of the families that come in have been notified that they must wear a mask to come in. Festival of Trees, we need at least 3 people to take the ornaments off the tree and take that lights and all of that on December 28th at the Masonic Center. So we need about 3 people for that. So anybody that can help there, please let me know, and or sign up on Portal Buzz.
When are we doing that, Gary?
Pardon me?
What time do we do that?
Let's do it we can do it at what 10 a.m. Does that work? Hopefully that works for everybody. Okay. Member updates. Karen Heisel, she emailed me 2 days ago. She said she had just had a virtual doctor visit. They want her to take another round of steroids and some other meds to try to help her get rid of the COVID thing. They said that with the lupus and the medication she takes, it's going to be a lot harder for her to get over it than others. So medication, rest, and a lot of fluids. So keep Karen in your prayers too, so she can get through this thing. Sam, we know, passed on December 4th, Sam Smith. Sam was 90 years old and a Kiwanis member for over 32 years. A remembrance memorial is being planned by the family for spring of 2021. We don't have any other updates on that at this point. Once we do, we'll let you know. You can make memorial contributions to the Montgomery County Community Foundation in his name. We're asking that you submit it to the Kiwanis Donor Advised Fund for that. And then Jerry talked about Hubert. We want to keep Hubert and Karen and Sam's family all in our prayers for this season. It's very, very tough to go through a season when you have a season like this, when you have this going on. Any other member updates for anybody? Okay. Meetings. We're not planning any in-person meetings for this foreseeable future, as we said. We will not have a meeting on December 24th, Christmas Eve. Next week, I will not be here. Terry nor I will be here for our meeting, but Jerry's agreed to hold the meeting for us. I will get it started and then turn it over to Jerry so he can host it and record it, and then we'll get it all online again. I hate to miss that meeting, Andy, because you've got what sounds like a great speaker. So
Yeah,
I will get it. We'll get it recorded, and I'll take a look at it then. We are planning a Zoom meeting for Thursday, December 31st. And since everybody's at home, we don't have to worry about driving after our meeting. So, we can enjoy the meeting.
well, we could have cocktails during the meeting, I guess, couldn't we?
That's
That's
right.
okay. I second the motion.
Yeah. And I'll third it and fourth it and even fifth it.
With a fifth, huh?
A fifth?
Yeah.
I'll provide the booze.
There you go.
Nobody-
There you go.
Nobody knows what a fifth is anymore.
That's right. So we want to celebrate that day, really, so we can all say goodbye to this horrible year and celebrate the upcoming year. As we said last week, Pancake Week. We are planning a Pancake Week in March of 2021 in coordination with the Crawfordsville McDonald's stores. Caleb, I don't know if you have any updates or anything.
Email for those on the committee is coming out today, actually.
Okay, great. Good. So really excited about that and our conversations with McDonald's, and we'll get that thing going. Happy Bucks. This is our last last couple of weeks for the Eliminate project. I want to get some bucks in there to help get rid of the neonatal tetanus around the world. I don't know if you all saw the bulletin earlier this week, but 47 out of the 59 priority countries have been validated for MNT elimination, and 3 countries have been partially validated. So we've got 12 total countries to finish off that are still at risk for maternal neonatal tetanus around the world. So we want to keep working on that to try to get rid of it. Boy, we in partnership have just done a great job in getting that done. Q2, like we said, will be Riley Hospital. Q3, Mountie Mission, and Q4 will be Pam's Promise. So who's happy today? Hello.
Gary,
Hey, Brian.
I'm happy about IU's season. Sorry, bud, but you know, football and basketball, though basketball wasn't the greatest last night, but they played with Florida State. So
Got beat.
got beat by 2 points in overtime. So,
Wow.
but I'm happy with their
Still
season.
won.
Good. Who else?
Here's a couple for Eliminate.
Thank you. Who else? Anybody? Okay, I'll throw 5 in for Eliminate. Andy?
Yeah, 5 because I'm just happy.
Good. Good. It's a great time to be happy. Christmas time is very, very important. So we're really looking forward to that. So let's keep that up and let's keep that coming, because we want to support these charities that we deal with on a regular basis, please. This day in history, December 3rd, December 10th, 1690, the first paper currency was issued in the American colonies. And it was interesting finding out why they issued paper currency. It was mainly used to pay the troops who couldn't carry all the coins in their pockets. And then they used it to collect taxes with paper currency. So kind of sounds very similar to today. You know, turn over that paper currency to the government. Sorry, Mayor Barton.
I think he laughed.
And 1869, Wyoming granted women the right to vote. So they were ahead of the curve there. But one of the reasons that this was granted, this was interesting too, was because at this time, Wyoming had 6,000 adult males and only 1,000 adult females. It was felt that if they gave them the right to vote, they'd have more women moving into Wyoming. So they had an ulterior motive there. 1915.
So how'd that work out for him?
I don't know. I didn't get that far, but 1915, Ford built its 1 millionth car. Of course, it was a Model T. The original Model T cost $850, which is about $20,000 in today's dollars. The price actually went down with automation, and the car sold at $300, about $3,700 in today's money by the time they stopped making them. So I don't know if has there been any other cars that have gone down in price since they first introduced them?
They go down in value pretty fast, but
Yeah, they go down in value pretty fast when you pull off the lot, but I don't know about going down in price.
I expect they all went to the shop to be repaired.
Yeah, that's right.
You can have any color you wanted as long as it was black.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. December 10th, 2020 is Human Rights Day. And December 10th is National Lager Day. So we have a right to have a lager today. I guess that's one of our human rights, right? So we can go out and get that. Birthdays, 1830, poet Emily Dickinson was born. Going back to national days. Today is also the first day of Hanukkah, the festival of lights, which begins at sundown tonight. My secretary's here is helping me and just, pointing it out that I missed that on my agenda. Birthdays, 1830, poet Emily Dickinson was born. 1911, Chet Huntley was born. What network was he on? Anybody know?
NBC.
See,
Very good. Very good. NBC. 1914, Dorothy Lamour was born, American actress and singer. 1928, Dan Blocker was born. Anybody know who Dan Blocker was?
Boss.
Boss on Bonanza, that's right. And in 1941, Tommy Rettig was born. Who was he? Timmy on the TV show Lassie.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tommy Rettig.
yeah,
He
Timmy.
was born.
No, not Timmy, but
Yeah. Well,
who's the other one?
yeah.
there were a couple of them. There was a guy, an actor named John Prevost.
Provost.
Yeah.
Provost.
it was always
Yeah.
Timmy in the well.
Yeah, Timmy was the one who was played by Tommy Rettig.
No, Timmy was John Provost,
Okay.
wasn't it?
I think they were both.
Well, I think there was a couple different ones.
Maybe they were all Timmy.
Yeah,
They were all Timmy,
I
but
think
different
so.
kids.
different.
Well, they were all Lassie too, so they didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were different lassies. They were different lassies.
Yeah, they always said that, they had one show where Lassie had puppies, but they said Lassie was a male.
Right. That was difficult.
Yeah, his name was Pal.
Why she never got a haircut.
Yeah, really? Okay, Kiwanian birthdays this week. Today, Bob Snyder. And on Sunday, December 13th, we've got Carolyn and Don Thompson and Stu Oliver. So all these
Good
people
day.
celebrating.
It was a good day.
It was a good day.
Well,
Yeah.
it was till you said Welliver.
Yeah. Well, 67% is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And Byron Theta is next week on the 15th, next Tuesday. So,
It's my son's birthday on the 15th of December.
oh, well, that didn't come up on our calendar.
No, but he'll take any gift you might want to give
Oh,
him.
okay.
He'll be 54.
There you go. Good. Wow. Okay, Andy, I'll turn it over to you. You're our speaker coordinator for the month, and I'm going to mute everybody. So Andy and Mayor Barton, once we get this all muted and Andy introduces you, please unmute yourself and we'll open it up. Andy, you got to unmute yourself.
There we go. Well, I wanted to thank Mayor Barton. I don't feel like I coerced him, but we do work together monthly, and sometimes a little more often than that. But he and I started at the same time. I went on the council, and he became mayor, and so I think we've developed a friendship and as well as a working relationship. And I've said this many times that sometimes things happen for the right reason. And I think when Mayor Barton became mayor at the right time, and we've seen a lot of good things happen in Crawfordsville since he's been here. And I think we're going to continue to see good things happen. And it's been a pleasure to work with him. And I don't think we've had any big disagreements, maybe a couple. He's never said much that, he's never indicated that to me, but I feel very happy and very fortunate to have been on the council all this time with him. And he's got some things for us, I think, today that'll hopefully build everybody's spirits and let us know what's going on in the community. So Mayor Barton.
Well, thank you, Andy. Thank you for those kind words. And in the council meetings, I have the ability to mute Andy's mic at any point. So I always remind myself of that. Greetings from City Hall. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody today. I'll just cover a few things and kind of what's happening, and then I'll certainly open it up for any questions that you all might have. To say that this has been a challenging year would be a profound understatement. I tell everybody that this is not really what any of us envisioned, and certainly wasn't what I envisioned when I became mayor. It's not been the most pleasant year to be the mayor, and it's not been the most pleasant year to be in a lot of people's shoes, and that's just the reality of the situation. You often hear the word unprecedented, and I think that's very appropriate. Virtually everything we're dealing with right now is unprecedented, so there's not really a playbook to look at. I think for me, it's really trying to sort through all the noise that sometimes happens and really make good, sound decisions. And there's a lot that goes into that about how we address things in this community and how we move forward. I've said all along that I felt like we entered this in a very strong position. We entered it 2020 in a very strong position, and we did, both in terms of the momentum in this community and our financial position. And I'm pretty confident we're going to come through this in an equally strong position as well. We just have to make sure we navigate this properly and do the right things. The pandemic has affected every aspect of how we function as a city, as city government, and as a community. And it's affected all of your lives, I know. We have to really think through how we do things and how we do business now. We've worked very hard in this community to approach this in a collective fashion. And I know you have different speakers and they bring different views about different aspects of what's happening in the community, but I'm especially proud of how this community has approached this collectively. The key decision makers and leaders meet at least weekly, if not more. We share information, we coordinate what we're doing, we cooperate, and a lot of times there's a give and a take there. And you do not necessarily see that in a lot of communities. I think it's rather unique. I've been in some group meetings virtually with mayors around the state, and I typically leave those meetings just thankful that I'm in Crawfordsville rather than some of those other communities, because everybody's kind of out for their own interest and everybody's kind of bickering, and at the end of the day, the community response suffers because of that, and we don't have that in Crawfordsville. There is a lot of cooperation, and that involves compromise sometimes. So as I said, we do meet on a regular basis. We met this morning. We are adjusting that and tweaking that starting next week in how we conduct those meetings. But that kind of comes from my background in emergency services. There's a concept called incident command or incident management. It's very similar to what the military does, and that's how we move forward with our decision making, so that everybody gets that briefing. Everybody knows, those key people know what's going on. And how to coordinate together to make the right decisions and make things happen in this community. That is really critical. I think without that, we would all kind of be in a silo doing our own thing, and you start to see people stepping on one another's toes, and you see duplication of efforts. You see then feelings get hurt, and then relationships sour, and the community ultimately suffers from that. And we stay ahead of those kinds of issues here. As far as city government goes, a big challenge for us has been, we have to think about not only how do we protect the community, but also how do we continue our continuity of services ourselves. We have public safety, we have the police department, we have the fire department, emergency medical services. Then the things such as getting the trash picked up and the leaves picked up and the streets cleared and all those kinds of things that have to happen. And in March, we took a serious look at that and went through our plans and made sure everything was in place. And we didn't really have any problems March, April, May, and through the summer. Now we find ourselves in some tight spots. We've been functioning in some of our departments with significantly reduced staff. City Hall has been functioning with significantly reduced staff because you have a complicated scenario. You have people who might be ill. You have people who might just be under quarantine because they've been around someone who's ill. And then most of our employees are also parents. And sometimes you have children in quarantine and you have childcare complications and issues. So we really created, I think, a strong policy to be there for our employees and allow them to do what they need to do, but also protect our workforce and allow us to continue functioning as a city and doing things we're doing. We've not missed a beat as far as the delivery of services, but it has been challenging, to say the least. A lot of how we do business in city government has changed. We're forced into that virtual realm a lot more than we were. So a lot of our meetings now, even our internal meetings, take place virtually. And I'll tell you, we were a little hesitant at first. That seemed kind of awkward and strange, but we've grown accustomed to it. And it really probably changes how we do business going forward. Even if the pandemic was over today, we know that we can, for example, meet with businesses and companies. It doesn't matter where they're at. A lot of times we use consultants for different things. I don't have to pay them to drive to Crawfordsville. We all click and get on the platform and conduct our business, and then everybody, logs off and goes on their way, and it's good. So, and I'll give you an example of that. Kathy Steele Park is being rebuilt because of an anonymous donor. That entire new design for that new park was done virtually. We met with the consultants repeatedly. Our team here at the city, the team with the engineering firm, the donor, everybody met, multiple times over the summer, worked through that entire design, and we never once physically all sat in the same room. It was all done virtually. So I think that holds a lot of promise for the future and how we do business. We have right now, in the spring, we had suspended all the public meetings, and then we started to open those back up. We've now reverted back, and we have suspended our public meetings again to a certain degree. So, kind of the rule of thumb is if it's not a time-sensitive agenda, a lot of those meetings have been canceled for right now. If there are pressing issues and things that need to be taken care of, we are holding those public meetings in the virtual format. So you'll see Board of Works, City Council met in committee last Monday night in the virtual format. And those are always published in the newspaper, and people can just basically click the Zoom link and tune into those meetings. Again, that was a little awkward at first. It's taking some getting used to. I'll tell you that I'm not a huge fan, but I'm warming up to it a little bit more. I think it's a little harder for the public to participate in the process. Other communities have had a different outcome. They think it's improved access and improved participation. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. We are only able to do that because of the governor's executive order giving us the ability to do that. A few months ago or a year ago, we wouldn't be able to conduct public meetings in that manner. There is talk. We had a meeting with legislators yesterday. We think they're going to address that issue moving forward. So the question will be, are we allowed to have virtual meetings once the pandemic is over? Are we allowed to have hybrid meetings? Some members can participate virtually and some are physically present. And if you are allowed to do that, then how many meetings do you physically have to attend a year to retain your membership? All different kinds of questions that the legislature is going to sort through. It's interesting to me, there's really a big push from local governments to change the law to allow these virtual meetings. The legislators seem to be rather hesitant to do that without some serious guardrails in place. And obviously the public access counselor will weigh in as well. So a lot to play out there, but right now we are doing the virtual meetings, and we've done a couple of hybrid meetings where some people are physically present and others are meeting virtually. And we're going to be taking some steps down the road, and I'll kind of talk about that here in a minute, to improve our ability to host those kinds of meetings. One of my big things when I took office was conducting the community forums, where I set a time each month that's published in the newspapers and so on. And anyone from the public can come in and just ask questions or offer suggestions and so on. And I had to suspend those. I think it was probably March, somewhere in there. And that's been tough for me because I really value those, and that's how I get a lot of feedback from the community. Really toyed with how to bring those back and have made the decision just indefinitely to keep that suspended until we get through the pandemic, because I really don't know how to safely conduct those, in a manner that everybody's comfortable and everybody's safe. And knowing that a lot of the people who come to those are probably in the higher risk categories. So it really is a tough dilemma for me. And what I've done is just say, hey, if you're going to come to one of those, and now that I don't have them, just reach out to me and call me, send me an email, something. I still want the feedback. I've just struggled with how to do that in a safe manner. So that is temporarily not happening, and I don't really like it, but we'll deal with it, and it'll be back someday when it's safe to do so. Last spring and into the summer, our small businesses were profoundly affected by the closures, the restaurants, and the things like that. And we stepped forward and created a local program. There were federal programs, state programs. We created a local program. We were able to assist 42 small businesses in the city of Crawfordsville with just a little over $250,000 in funding. And that was important because our goal there was not, we knew we couldn't solve the problem for them. We couldn't fix everything, but our goal was to keep them from going under. So if we can help you pay the rent a month or two, get your taxes paid, those kinds of things to keep you afloat until we pass through this. And I'm happy to report that with the exception of one, all those businesses are still in business. And the one closed for other reasons, had nothing to do with the pandemic. So, to get through that initial wave and still see all of our small restaurants and shops in the downtown, I think is a testament that program really worked and really helped them hold on. The question is, if we get into another situation where they're all closed down again, what will happen the second time? And I'll tell you right now, I don't really have the answer. I don't have the funding in place that I had then to do that, but we'll see what happens if we end up in that situation. But over 42 small businesses and over $250,000. And I think that was significant for our community our size to be able to step forward and do that. Part of what we've been doing in city government as well, I mean, we have the daily operations and normal things going on. We've also been very involved in the actual response to the pandemic, probably more so than most cities. If you think about a lot of the responsibility, for example, the health department falls under the auspices of county government. And so it's pretty easy for a lot of cities to say, hey, that's not our thing, and we don't need to really participate in that. We've taken a different approach here. We work collectively in this community as a team. And I think probably because of my background, I feel more of an obligation to step forward and help in that realm. So the response you've seen in this community has really been a joint city-county response. It has not been, just the county doing it and the city kind of walking away. The testing site on North Green Street, the city's paying for that site. And we certainly did not have to do that by any means, but I knew that testing in this community was woefully inadequate, and that's a way we could move it forward. When you see the press releases and all the information come out of the county health department about the pandemic, the people doing that, the public information officers, are city employees. So I loaned them to the county health department when all this started. So we've worked together very, very well and shared resources. And I think that's, again, unique and a testament to the strength of this community. The city of Crawfordsville was awarded funding under the CARES Act. We received $522,000.
Let's go ahead and get
under the CARES Act, and the state had outlined a procedure to follow there. And in Indiana, the process was a little convoluted. No, it was a lot convoluted, a little confusing. And we had to work. It took a few months to work through that. We ended up retaining a law firm in Indianapolis to help us. And that's basically, they had developed a team to just sort through the CARES Act because the rules were kind of changing. It seemed like on a daily basis. And really what had happened is the feds had handed this money down to the states, and they were to distribute to the local governments. Each state kind of wanted to put their own twist on it and their own stamp on it, and maybe tweak it in a way that reflected their values or their policies. And the feds then came back and kind of stopped some of that. So it was kind of dicey for a while, but we were given that funding. And really what we're doing there, we set up a special account, we put it in there, and we are funding some improvements. Obviously, like I said, the testing site is being paid for out of that CARES Act funding. We are making some changes to some of our buildings just to make them more, to increase that social distancing. We had some issues in some of our buildings with the air handling systems that didn't meet the current requirements. So in fact, this morning there was a crane on Water Street setting new HVAC unit for the fire headquarters. And if you think about anywhere from 10 to 15 firefighters sleeping in that dormitory at a time, it's really important that we have good HVAC system with the proper filtration in place. So some of those kind of things are happening out of the CARES Act. We've bought some new equipment for response that means we don't have to decon things as quickly. So heart monitors, for example, that they're not going from patient to patient. They can take it off the truck and decon it, put another one on until they get that process completed. So some things like that. One of the things we're doing with CARES Act funding that I think is really important is we are greatly improving our ability to hold public meetings in that virtual format. So we're spending some money in the mayor's conference room and then in the council chambers at the city building and at Fusion to really greatly improve our ability to hold public meetings in that virtual format and maybe the hybrid format where some people are present and some aren't. I said I struggled with those meetings, and I think part of that is because I'm just not sure we have the right technology. And I think, having a public meeting where we're passing a laptop around and pointing it at different people to speak is probably not conducive to conducting a good meeting. So we're spending some money to get that all changed. And I think what we'll have in the end will be a very, very good system in place that will really allow us to do those kinds of meetings and allow the public to participate in a meaningful way. So we're excited about that. That has been actually ordered, and like anything else, we're in line with a lot of other communities. So I'm not sure when it will be installed, but hopefully not before too long. I think one thing to really watch for this next week, I talk about how we make collective decisions in this community. There will be some changes coming, I can tell you, in the next week. As things continue to progress. You watch that color county by county code that you see in the governor's press conferences, and we've been orange. There's a good possibility we could end up in that red category, which triggers a lot of other things. We will be meeting collectively. I'll be meeting with the county commissioners, the county administrator, the health officer, the health department, city attorney, county attorney. All of us will be making some collective decisions really in the coming days. And I would really watch for the news in the next week, because I think you're going to see some changes happen. And I'll tell you that those are complicated decisions. And it's been tough this year. And I jokingly say that sometimes I feel like I hear from 80% of the population that they think we're doing too much. And I hear from 80% of the population that we're not doing enough. And I know that doesn't add up, but that's what it feels like some days. People are very passionate about this, and people are a little on edge. And it's pretty easy to sit out there and say, well, they should do this or not do that. Those are complicated, complex decisions. And there's a lot that goes into that. We have to consider the science that's presented to us, the data. Dr. Douglas is very good about presenting the data to us. We also have to consider, the input from the public health side, input on the legal side. What are our legal bounds? What can we do? What can't we do? That has to be taken into consideration, and the economic impact of some of our decisions. Sometimes you're weighing out the lesser of the evils, and it's very difficult. I'll tell you, when I became mayor, I was comfortable with life and death decisions from my previous career, but some of the decisions we have to make today are not fun. They're not pleasant. They cause you to lose sleep at night. But we're going to do the right things in this community and protect this community and move forward and know that we will come through this in a strong position. Over the summer, you may have seen where there was a lot of talk around the country, even in our own community, on the topic of racial equality. So it's been an interesting year. If you take a pandemic and you throw in the tensions over racial equality in the summer, and then you throw a national election that was very controversial on top of it, it's been very trying and very challenging. I'm proud of how this community approached that discussion. I deliberately didn't jump out there quickly. I wanted to really understand that conversation through the lens of what's happening in Crawfordsville and Montgomery County. It's very easy to get pulled into that and make assumptions based on what's happening in other communities, and that may or may not reflect what's happening here. So I did that, and then I outlined in the local newspapers really kind of my assessment of where I thought we were at, and laid out a very detailed plan for moving forward. And I'm happy to report that that plan has been progressing. I formed the Mayor's Special Commission on Racial Equality. We very carefully selected who was on there. I wanted people on there that brought diverse views, and I also wanted people on there who were going to roll up their sleeves and get to work. And that group has really worked hard behind the scenes. You've not seen much publicly out of them yet, but they worked very hard behind the scenes. Right now, they're kind of held up a little bit because of the pandemic, like everything else. So, with the pandemic and the holidays, they're not really doing much at the moment, but they have really done a lot of background work. They divided into two subgroups, and one group was strictly looking at policies. So there was a lot of talk about use of force policies, body camera policies, all those kinds of things. Those groups, they had an open book. So anything they wanted to look at, they could look at and evaluate. So we put the Crawfordsville Police Department's use of force policies on the table, our body camera policies, all those kinds of things. And we were way ahead of the curve on that. We had already made a lot of changes. And that group came back with a couple of minor little wording changes is really all that happened. Those have already been approved by the police commissioners and implemented. So I'm confident that we have policies here that reflect the desires of the community and reflect really what the community wants to see in policing and community policing and things like that. And really creating those safeguards both for the community and for our officers. It's really been fun to watch that group. They have really worked hard. It's a very dedicated group. The other subgroup is really working on the public education side of that. And that's the part that's been a little bit quieter. They're planning a lot of activity coming up, but of course, like everything else, they're hamstrung by the pandemic. It's hard to get out and really interact with the community when you can't get out and interact with the community. So I'm confident when the pandemic is through, you will hear a lot about them and what they're doing as well. So we've made a lot of progress on that front. Economic development activity, I can tell you when we went into the pandemic was very, very strong. And it stayed strong for a little bit. There was a lag time there, and then really kind of slowed down and then kind of sped back up again. It's been really, really strange this year. It's feast or famine. Either we're not getting any leads and nothing's happening, or it's like the floodgates open. And I remember right around Labor Day, I was like, I don't know what happened, but we were inundated with economic development activity. And then now it's kind of slowed back down to a trickle again. I think what I've seen though is that the projects and the leads that are out there it's lower in volume, but what's out there is more serious, and what's out there is more focused and more intense. And we're working some really exciting projects right now in terms of new projects potentially coming to this community. And you never know, which one of those you're going to land. Maybe you won't land any of them, but our track record is certainly improving, and we're landing some of those projects. So we're working some of those. We're also working expansions with our existing industries as well. Quite a few of those on the table right now. In reality, what all those come down to is really workforce. Can we supply the workforce that they need if they choose to come to this community or expand their existing operations in this community? It is entirely really dependent upon workforce today. We can compete with any community out there on taxes and tax abatement and incentives and land prices and utilities and all those kinds of things. We have to be able to ensure them that we can supply the workforce they need. At any given time, there are anywhere from 200, 300, 350 full-time jobs in the Crawfordsville area that are not filled. And when a new employer looks at a community, they see that, and that makes them a little nervous. Now, the saving grace there is we're not alone in that situation. That's happening all over the place. We're trying to be unique, though, in how we address it and how we approach it. So we meet with our employers on a regular basis, and we're doing a host of things to try to address that. That process had a lot of momentum going into the pandemic. It has slowed some, We've been struggling with some of those things, but there's still things happening, and I'm confident we'll be able to pick up where we left off and move forward after the pandemic. But again, workforce is the driving factor there. And years ago, it was all about create the jobs and the people will follow. Today, the inverse is actually what's true. Jobs follow people. You have to attract people to your community, and then the jobs follow that. It's the exact opposite of what it was 15 years ago. And how do you attract people to your community? Well, we're working on that from several fronts. Quality of life is important. That's what Stellar was about. A lot of the things we've done here is about keeping younger people, younger families in our community. What can we do to get them to stay here or to attract new residents? You have to be a welcoming community. We've done a lot on that front to really make sure that this is a community that people want to come to. Because again, if I have 200 jobs out there, if I could get people to come here, that goes a long way. And it's not just about new job creation, it's about meeting the needs of our existing employers. Due to the retirements in the workforce, we're not going to meet the needs of our current employers if we don't do something to address workforce in this community. So that's part of it. Another really, really big factor there is housing. Obviously, if you want people to stay in your community or come to your community, they need housing and they need a place to live. And that you can ask any real estate person out there, they'll tell you there is a shortage of housing in this community. And so we've been working very aggressively to address that. It was really difficult because the economies of scale did not tilt in our favor. The big housing developers stayed in those metro areas. So you would see just house after house in Brownsburg and Avon and West Lafayette and those kinds of places. You would talk to them about coming to Crawfordsville and it just didn't economically make sense. The legislature took some steps to kind of level that playing field, and we're trying to take advantage of that. And we will have some announcements in the coming months about some significant housing developers coming to this community. And we've worked hand in hand with the schools on that, because if you think about it, for them, funding now follows the student for the most part. So when we talk about adding 250 houses here or 100 houses here, they're on board and willing to help us make that happen as well. So housing is a really big component. I'm often asked what price range. It's across the board. We need entry-level housing. We need market rate apartments, all the way up through a little bit more expensive housing. So again, part of addressing that overall workforce challenge that we have. I'm often asked about what about the Commerce Park and where are we at with Commerce Park. If you've not been through there lately, I encourage you to go out and take a drive. It is nearly full. We don't have much left to market there. I have one really significant property left that I can market, and then one smaller one and a couple of tiny parcels that don't really, it'd be good for offices. That's about it. So the Commerce Park, we'll be closing that chapter of Crawfordsville's history out before too long. And I'm excited about that. And I think that, again, goes back to our different approach to economic development when we made changes a few years ago, and I brought Cheryl Morphew on board. She helped us very quickly figure out what we were not necessarily doing correct with the Commerce Park and why it wasn't moving forward. And now it is. So kudos to her. The question then remains, what do we do after the Commerce Park? And I don't have that answer, and we don't know. And I'm not saying we're going to go out and build another Commerce Park by any means. That was a pretty tricky endeavor. But we do need to understand how we market this community moving forward, because as I get new projects, I really have no land to submit about, there's 20 acres here you could build on, anything like that. I'm really kind of struggling. So we're looking at that question right now and trying to figure out where we go next. Where is there land available? Where's the infrastructure in place? Those kinds of things. And are there willing sellers? That's always the big question. Upcoming projects in 2021, just a little bit of a preview. The city was awarded funding from NDOT to make major improvements to Skank Road, which is an area just on the west side of the city that kind of runs from Country Club Road down to Big Four Arch Road. We have funding to take that on out to State Road 32. And it's not going to go directly south there. It's going to kind of wind over to the west a little bit and then go south, because there's a grade problem on 32 and a line of sight problem. So, but that's going to be happening. It won't be constructed in 2021, but you're going to start to see the design phase is really ramping up. The property acquisition phase will then start in steps like that. So it's an NDOT funded project, which means it will take several years to move through the process. But that is in the works, and you'll start to hear more about that. So, and if you think about that, that's really important. Why we pursued that project. There is not public north-south access all the way from Grant Avenue to County Road 200 West. Now, a lot of people cut through LSC Communications. We know that, but that's really private property. There's not a public road anywhere in there, and we need to open that area up because it's a prime area for new housing that I just talked about. So you're going to see that project start to move forward. Everybody asked about the Ben-Hur building. What's happening with the Ben-Hur building? Are we moving forward there? And we are. The city has basically wrapped up all the steps that we need to wrap up on our end. And now there's a couple more steps that need to happen. I feel pretty confident you're going to see construction next year begin on that project. And I thought we would be a little bit ahead of where we are now. But again, the pandemic got involved. That really slowed things down and the ability for the developer to make some things happen. We also ran into some issues, and this is not uncommon, with the assessed value of the building. And then anytime there's a handoff, in this case, because of back taxes from the county to the developer, there are all different kinds of legal loopholes. The attorneys are on the call here, but all kinds of legal loopholes that we can run into that have to be closed up. So those things just take time, and when you have a pandemic going on, it slows it down even further. But we just met yesterday to go through this again, and everything is good there. So I would say 95% chance construction next year. There's still that 5% chance something could go wrong and derail it, but I don't really see that happening at this point. Again, that will be developed into a hotel, with that top floor being apartments that are kind of designed for maybe somebody who's here for a year or two, visiting professor, somebody coming into one of the industries and so on. So the Ben-Hur project is moving forward. The downtown trail construction is complete. There are a few items to wrap up, just minor items that need to be corrected on that trail that should have been corrected this year. But again, because of the pandemic, some things got pushed back, but that'll take place. You probably won't even notice those. We're excited to have that in place. I think it sets the stage. It in itself, it connects the campus to the downtown. But other than that, you're thinking, well, what's the point? The point is that it sets the stage for a complete loop around the downtown in the future. So we've got that first piece out of the way, and people can envision what it means and how it works. The wayfinding project is moving forward. There's been a little bit of press about that. That's a combination of city and county project and through the Visitors Commission and the innkeeper's tax. And that's just to create better wayfinding and unified signage in our community. We have a lot of great offerings in this community, but it's very confusing to the visitor. Where do I park? Where's the free parking in the downtown? Where are the different museums? It's a hodgepodge of signs all over the place. And this will clean that up. And I know the newspapers ran previews of what that's going to look like, and it's pretty exciting. If you've been to Lafayette, West Lafayette, some of those areas, they have great wayfinding there. It's very easy to figure out where you're going. The company that designed theirs has designed ours. So we're through the design process. The next phase is really funding, acquiring the signs themselves that'll be placed. I thought we would probably be doing that, this fall and have them in place next year. Funding obviously has been delayed because of the pandemic. So, it'll still happen. It'll probably just be maybe 6 months to a year behind what I had originally envisioned. But again, a joint project there. And I think we'll really start to set this community apart by making it look so much better to that visitor. And even the people who are here, I'm amazed at people who work downtown and tell me they get tickets all the time and they don't think there's any free parking. I'm like, well, there's parking lot over here that's free and a parking lot that's over there that's free. Our signage doesn't help. And it's very confusing to people. And throw the one-way streets on top. And it can not be a welcoming place for the outside visitor. We know that sometimes. So wayfinding will help with that. The city's also in talks right now. There's a site on the east side of Crawfordsville where the Impex facility was located years ago. It has sat vacant for a very long time. We've been in constant communication with the owner of that property. There were some environmental issues that were remediated. IDEM has signed off on that site. And we're in talks with the owner of that site about how it's going to move forward. And I expect some announcements there before too long. And I'm excited that they've reached out to us and it's kind of one of those conversations that started years ago and then kind of got cold and we didn't hear anything, and it started up again, and it's moving forward. So there'll be some things there. Another project in 2021 that I'm very excited about is we've received funding to remove the dam from Sugar Creek. So we received a dam grant to remove that. And I'm really excited about that because most people don't realize there are environmental, ecological concerns with that dam being there, but more importantly, there are tremendous public safety concerns with that dam being there. That is a low head dam. You can Google this and read all about this. Those are very, very dangerous. And I know there are rescues performed a couple of times a year off of that dam, and anything we can do to improve that safety. So the environmental studies, ecological studies have all been done. They've all been approved. And we have the funding to remove that. That dam will come out some point in 2021. And the city's contribution, we had to put in a match, will be that we will haul away the concrete and dispose of the concrete. So, and we have the place to do that. So that will be a profound change. And we've partnered with Friends of Sugar Creek. They've been a strong partner in our ability to move forward to do that. And I know they're very excited about that project as well. We also have a grant from the EPA to assess brownfields in our community. And these are just sites that sit there and languish forever. That old gas station, that old factory site where, nobody really develops it or buys it because everybody's concerned about the potential environmental issues. This grant allows us to come in and have those sites assessed so we have facts. And most of the time when you get the facts, then you're able to move it forward and get it developed because you take the scariness away out of the equation for a potential developer on that site. So EPA chose us for that, and I think that's a good sign, and we're excited to partner with them on that project. I mentioned the Kathy Steele Park earlier. It's under construction as we speak. Again, an anonymous donor stepped forward. We acquired that from the school corporation a few years ago and made little changes as we could. I felt it was important because a lot of people live on the west side, a lot of families. There was not a park facility on the west side anywhere, and this really helped. And now we're going to be able to turn that into just from being a green space into a really spectacular little park. And we're really excited. That'll wrap up in the spring, and it will be very noticeable to people. And hopefully people come from all over to use that, not just people in that neighborhood. But it's been designed, I think, with a lot of thought put into it to be very inclusive. So it's designed for maybe children who are on the autism spectrum. I've had a lot of inquiry from people. Hey, we don't really have parks for children who may be on that spectrum. How can we incorporate something that's a little more user-friendly? And we've done all that with this park. Granted, it's very small, but I think it's a step certainly in the right direction. We also have been awarded a stormwater planning grant, and that's not very exciting to most people, but stormwater is a major issue and becoming more of an issue for communities, and it has been for us. How do we address water in the city on the surface? And this will allow us to really, we've done a lot of work in the last few years. We've addressed major problems in our neighborhoods, but we really need to create a comprehensive plan moving forward about how we're going to step forward and do this. And those problems change. I mean, as rainfall increases, wherever you fall on the global warming and the climate change issue, the reality is the rainfall is up dramatically. And what's also happened is that farmers around the city on the periphery have increased the tile in their fields. And those areas, all that rain off those fields now gets put in the tile much quicker, and a lot of times comes into our neighborhoods that are on the edges of the city. So we have areas in the city that flood now that never flooded before. So I think this planning grant will really help us address some of those issues moving forward. We've also applied for funding for the Sugar Creek erosion problem. That's something that's happening in 2 neighborhoods in Crawfordsville. You don't hear much about it because for people who don't live in those neighborhoods, it's not on your radar. You probably don't even know what we're talking about. If you live in one of those 2 neighborhoods, it is profoundly impactful for you. It's primarily the area of Wayne Avenue on the west side, and then the area of Sugar Cliff, which is on the far west side. Those areas, if you go and visit, the Sugar Creek has shifted and moved, and it's actually eroding the high bank there. We've lost homes on Wayne Avenue. They just don't exist anymore. They've fallen in the creek and they're gone. And that's pretty close to happening in Sugar Cliff. We've struggled with that issue for decades. I inherited that issue and really, I didn't really know how to approach it. We kept talking to different consultants and engineers, and we finally came up with a plan. So we've applied for some funding that would, if awarded, would allow us to address it in 3 phases. And ultimately what happens there is you're not going to change the trajectory of the creek. What's going to happen there is you start buying out those properties and getting the homes out of there, leaving it vacant, knowing that over time, there was a study done that shows how far back this will go before it stops. And it'll stop at some point. So you just get those homes that are in the danger area out of the way. And understanding that it's important to people because they've invested their life savings into buying this home and now it's going to fall in the creek. So a tough issue to tackle as a community and very unique. There was not a playbook for this because that is very unique to the geology with Sugar Creek for us to run into that. I found one other place in the country that had ever dealt with anything like that. So the state has been a really big partner with us in helping us address that. So we've applied for that. We won't know until probably late in 21 whether we get funded for round one. That'll be important to those neighborhoods. A lot going on behind the scenes right now about passenger rail. I know you're not hearing anything about that. You think passenger rail is dead in Indiana because the Hoosier State's gone and all that kind of stuff. That's really not true. There is a lot happening behind the scenes. And I think in mid to late 2021, you'll start to hear a lot about that. I'm excited because Crawfordsville will be a major player in how that moves forward in the state of Indiana. We'll be one of the leaders on that. And then, we're continue to work on our solar capacity. Crawfordsville now leads the state as far as municipal solar capacity. And there's a chance that we could add some more and put us further ahead. So that's hugely important to us. And I know you heard from Chief Miller at the fire department last week about the innovative things they're doing, and we're really excited about that. Again, part of that overall approach to innovation and how we partner in this community. Those community paramedics are doing fantastic things, and I think it really does set us apart in this community. And then if you haven't done so, I would encourage you some point to check out our podcast. We do that. I'll put this plug in. We do that weekly now. So they come out on Monday mornings. We record on Fridays. And that's really an opportunity for you to hear directly what's happening in city government. We talk about a range of topics and keep everybody updated. You can find it anywhere you get podcasts. It's real easy. Just click on it on your phone, listen to it at your convenience. The pandemic has really fueled those numbers as well because I'll have Dr. Douglas on there a lot and Amber at the health department, and we talk about what's happening. So if you've not had a chance to do that, it's called Crawfordsville Connection. It started out as Mayor Time. We switched it to Crawfordsville Connection. You can get on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, any of those places. By all means, subscribe to that and it'll keep you up to date on everything that's happening. So all that being said, I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Mayor, do we have any, anything extra on the Dr. Michael Park? Like, is that finished or is there more plans for that at all?
No, it's not finished. Really what had happened there is that was a plan change as we moved through Stellar. So our goal there was, let's just get the park in place and then it will kind of be a blank slate and prepared for future development. So that is something that will play out over time. I envision a lot more happening there. We're just not to that point yet.
Any other questions?
Well, I wanted to point out when you mentioned the money that we gave to the downtown businesses, those were interest-free loans. Wasn't that right, Mayor?
So yeah, what had happened there is that's set up as a quote forgivable loan, which is a little bit of a tricky process. The thought there is we don't want to, most of them would say, hey, look, I don't need to incur more debt right now. I'm already in trouble. This is set up that if they meet certain parameters, the loan will be forgiven. And we use some of our economic development money to do that. But we did create it as a loan just in case somebody, I guess, basically took the money and ran, right? And didn't make an effort to keep their business going. We have the mechanism to recall that and pursue that as a loan. But if they meet those requirements and do what they need to be doing to keep their business afloat, the Board of Works technically will review that at the end of that 1 year mark and forgive those that they're either still in business or did what they said they would do with the money.
Who else? Jerry, anybody else? Questions?
You mentioned the taking out the Lowhead Dam at the old light plant. Osbrook spoke to us a couple of years ago, I think, and mentioned that there's a lot of worrisome effluent, sludge below that dam as a result of the, I guess, the stuff that was being dumped by the Mallory capacitor plant into the creek years and years and years ago. What's going to happen to all that stuff? Is it going to have to be dredged, or?
So that was part of the environmental assessment. And really the key question was, is there more of that above the dam than below the dam? And if that was the case, we probably wouldn't have been able to remove the dam unless we went through this extensive process. What we found in doing that environmental testing was that those numbers were really surprisingly low, and it was equally distributed both above and below the dam. So removing the dam wasn't having any environmental impact whatsoever. And if you think about over the years, flooding and everything that happens to push all that stuff around. So the numbers were surprisingly low. I know a couple of years ago, we all had that concern that this is something really bad and scary. When we had the companies come in and do the testing, that really didn't bear fruit. There is some contamination, don't get me wrong, but it was not like what we envisioned. And OS has been very, very, very helpful and very involved in this process.
Anybody else? Mayor, I thank you for joining us today and
Thank you.
spending some time with us. I know it's very, very important, and I'm sure you've been very, very busy. So thanks for taking the time out of your day to spend with us. And thanks, Andy, for arranging to get Mayor Barton here. And Mayor, as a member, heck, you're invited all the time. So come and visit with us.
I will try to do that. I'll try to be better at that. How's that?
Okay, good.
Something pulls me in another way. So
yeah. Well, thank you all, or thanks for being here. We do appreciate it, and we'll look forward to meeting with you next time, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. For everybody else, our next meeting will be December 17th, and our speaker will be Dan DeGrease, retired.
DeGrice.
Retired battalion chief of Chicago Fire Department and Wabash College grad. So
Yeah, I think
forward to that.
I think it will be really
recorded so we can hear that.
It'll be an interesting program.
I'm sure it will.
Quite a young man, or I say young man, he's younger than I am.
Okay, that's young. So okay, anything else we need to talk about today before we close? Okay, the Santa joke of the day. What do you call a snowman who vacations in Florida? A puddle. Okay, I guess everybody's got it. Okay. Quote of the day: the more you like yourself, the less you are like anyone else, which makes you unique. By Walt Disney. Thank you all for being here today. We appreciate it. And we look forward to next week. And we'll see you all then. Thanks. Bye now.
Thanks, Mayor.